2021 marks the centenary of the founding of the Communist Party of China. In this milestone year, we spoke to foreigners who live in China today and those who have observed and studied the country to find out what they know about the ruling party. First up, we hit the streets.
Efficiency, and it gives a sense of protection.
Strong, competitive,
quite impressive.
It brings people together, everybody having a common goal.
Community, eliminating poverty.
Control the pandemic, really effective.
Different way to kind of lead a country, also a good way.
To find out if there were any factors that enabled the CPC to achieve its successes, we reached out to China experts, who, having first visited the country decades ago, have seen firsthand its developments.
The modern Communist Party is extremely scientific in everything they do. They study, they plan, and they implement. If the implementation isn't going the way they want, they change, they adjust.
China has set long-term goals, midterm objectives, and short-term policies that are monitored and reported regularly.
And when we say long-term, we're talking about 5, 10, 15, even more years for policy consistency. And what are some examples? Poverty alleviation.
Chinese leaders' policy decisions are not taken in response to situations that occur today suddenly. They do respond to them, but the long-term policies are based on a great deal of reflection according to realities that they experience.
The party has organized in both a horizontal and vertical way. So at every level, there is a party cell, all the way down to right outside on the street here. So when the government has a policy at the top, for instance, coronavirus, when they decided to respond through quarantine measures or through testing, that policy is carried out from top all the way down to someone who knocks on my door and takes my temperature. At the same time, when you have at the local level problems, those issues are going up the system with the same speed. This vertical and horizontal matrix of communication and response, which is allowing the party to be effective in responding to people's needs, to envision the need for change, apprehend it, and respond accordingly.
So you have this structure that is very clear. Everybody knows their position for everything. And so when directives come from the national government, each level can know what they do.
When you come to COVID, there is an enormous difference between the ability of China to react and the rest of the world to react. They built 2 hospitals from scratch in 7 days. This is only possible when you have the most substantial organization ready to move.
The achievements of the leadership of the Communist Party of China as the ruling party are unquestioned. And so what is it about the party that has enabled that to happen? One is a sense of openness to try different types of economic structures and models, and to be willing to change those models and to see what works, seek truth from fact. So the ability for the party to look at new ideas, test them, and then roll them out is a very important factor.
There's no effort on behalf of the Communist Party to export what China has done ideologically. If you want to trade, please, we're open to it. You look at something like the AIIB, the Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank. They have no political agenda. Each investment is done merely on the basis of whether it is viable and whether it is helpful for that country. Nothing else.
I think that's what makes the Chinese Communist Party unique from any other in the world, because of its unique pragmatism I've noticed they always compare and contrast many different models, regardless of what country they're from, pick and choose the best and adopt it into the system here.
And it may not be the system that people are used to in Europe and America, but it is a system that has delivered the best economic performance. And not only best economics, but in terms of making people's lives better. China has a long way to go, but literally no other government has been able to do this.
It is the management and leadership of these parties which can either pull the country together and walk towards prosperity or drag the country in a terrifying condition. The role of the CPC in China has been definitely very positive and promising, which led to the success and a miraculous victory. I think it is trust, dedication, compassion, devotion, and above all, honesty of the CPC leadership that has led to the historical 100 years of experience.
Leadership here, they go through so much in order to reach a leadership position. They know the entire structure of the economy and the psychology of people in being able to address their needs and respond accordingly. I think this is very unique in the party.
But what I can say about President Xi is that when I met him, I looked into his eyes as he was talking. I could see a man who'd experienced poverty, who'd experienced the life of the peasants of China. I saw a fairly modest man. I put the needs of the Chinese people at the top of his agenda.
President Xi has focused on not just the good big things like developing science or poverty alleviation, but alleviating and worrying about risk. All different kinds of risks as it has occurred, from financial risk to pollution risk to the risk of corruption undermining the party. So he has had the long-term vision, and he's also had the short-term focus on risk.
He will work for the well-being of his people selflessly, where his self doesn't matter, dedicating his life for the people to bring up their well-being. And that can only be done by a selfless man. He's a selfless man who has worked for his nation, basically.
Why the Chinese Communist Party has been so successful in the transformation of China is because the party itself is constantly transforming. If we look back in the 1980s, the priority was to bring investment in. In the 1990s, it was how do you now make these enterprises efficient? What market mechanisms do you bring in? It's a constant changing process. Looking down the road, you now have pollution. In turn, they address that with ecological civilization. Today, China is the largest issuer of green bonds in the world. How the party is functioning, it is observing change, apprehending that need, and then responding.
One of the strengths of the party is a constant self-correction and a willingness to admit error.
These qualities, taken from the previous interviews and talks, were offered to explain the achievements of the CPC. But upon closer inspection, they reveal one uniting factor: the people.
When I used to speak to my friends in China about the lockdown, I used to say to them, how do you manage? And they said, because we've seen before with SARS, we know our government is doing what is best for us. The leadership of the Communist Party of China clearly has the support of the people of China. But if you now come back to the Chinese lesson, the basic position of the Communist Party of China has been, is, and I would imagine will continue to be, that this is all about the people. Hear the people and get the policies right to meet the needs of the people and educate the people about what is and is not feasible, honestly.
What we have seen is a party that has never let down its guard, a party that is consistently toiling on behalf of the Chinese people, appreciating its historic role and appreciating the choice that was made both by the Chinese people and history. And its abiding commitment is always to put the people first.